want to see what happens when they tear the world apart. I want to change things.
Well, what'd she say to you?
She said that every living creature on Earth dies alone. Lump things into two categories. Things aren't that simple.
The lifeline is divided that way.
Well, life isn't that simple. You can't just lump everything into these two categories and then just deny everything else.
Donnie Darko is a movie I hold very dear to me, and while I've grown I may have found more issues with the film, it still rings very important to me, and I think a large part of that was how the movie maybe inadvertently draws many parallels to and very accurately portrays how it can feel living with mental health issues. To be clear, I'm not trying to diagnose Donnie or describe his schizophrenia symptoms in any detail. He's very clearly diagnosed and dealing with it. Instead, I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about how the movie portrays living with it, in a way that I never really saw before watching this movie and which changed my outlook on things overall. This movie is fucking isolating. Specifically, it's isolating in a way a lot of neurodivergent people can relate to. There's plenty of people Donnie talks to, and even many of whom care for him, but they just don't get him, understand what he's feeling, or even trying to say. The best example I have is his relationship with his girlfriend. The closest person in his life at the time doesn't really understand him, and they even get together in a spur of the moment thing. They love each other, that's for sure, but she just doesn't understand what's going on in that head of his. No one can, not even himself most of the time. He doesn't really have friends, and the few people he can consider his friends we see for a single scene, and in that scene he totally isolates them from finding the BS on their weird fucked up Smurf sex theory, which, oh my god, these people absolutely would be the fuckers writing the worst, or other words, most popular creepypastas. What if the Rugrats were actually like fucked up, dude? So if you are making one of those stupid theories, then I hope you know some random mentally ill teen disagrees with you.
This is so illogical, you know, about being a Smurf. You know, what's the point of living if you don't have a dick?
Okay, never mind then. His family is the typical nuclear family, dysfunctional and passive-aggressive to a nearly British level. In fact, this entire movie is a sort of satire of the culture surrounding suburbia and its refusal to anyone who doesn't fit into its norms. I like the personal experience here, I'll admit. I never lived or set foot in the suburbs. Hell, I first entered a forest on a walk 2 years ago, so I'm as city life as it gets. However, from what I can tell from general media and general demographics, the suburbs in this film are portrayed as a place that rejects anyone who shows any sign of being different, like Donnie living with mental health issues, or Gretchen living with trauma, or even Miss Pomeroy who gets fired for teaching about a book which involves violence and mature themes. Oh boy, I wonder what that's a reference to. Also, lest we forget Roberta Sparrow, which she's going to be her own topic. Overall, being different makes this society reject you and torment you. The more you say what you think, the more it shocks, gasps, and even laughs at you. This is how it works, while the truly despicable could easily hide in it. I think this ultra-conservative rendition of suburbia is a perfect way of showing how society can feel for someone like this. It's essentially the antithesis of Donnie, someone who is and was born different. He's even different in his sleep. That's literally how the movie begins. Not sure if it's cliche, but this makes the setting feel like a character, almost as much as the characters living inside of it. An antagonist in quite the opposite of the general sense, serving as a completely reactionary role to the protagonist. However, unlike in other stories like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5, the protagonist, Donnie, isn't trying to change society as we know it, not intentionally. However, that's what ends up happening. I think Donnie following the orders of Frank can show how the effect of simply being who you are can push back and change the society around you without even being aware of it. The things we say or do, talking about how we are and how we see things differently, being inspired by the things that set us apart, changing the opinions of those around us. The reactions mentioned earlier can lead to actually good change, not the simple shocks, laughter, and ridicule, though that can lead into a better response and change for people who suffer, but to actually think on why people would say or do what they did. What is the end, though? Does this just mean that in the end, no matter what we do, it ends up the same as if we weren't there at all? God, no. This ending is entirely showing the impact that Donnie had on people, even without the knowledge of what he said. This shows what he means to people, and how without him, their lives are not the same, stuck in this worse world. It takes the mentally ill and the different to be able to say and make a truly positive change. Without them, this world is stagnant and simply worse for people. That's right. I think something important to say is that society that rejects those who are different, not just the mentally ill, but also just anyone under the thumb of discrimination, it isn't just terrible for the people it outright discriminates against, but also just anyone. It's a homogeneous hellscape, no difference in thought. You see this with Donnie's mother. She fits in, sure, but she has compassion, unlike the suburbs she lives in. For that, she's given grief, criticized for loving Donnie and not just accepting whatever. Intrusive Thoughts. Frank. To preface this, Frank might not be the best analog for Intrusive Thoughts. As Donnie acts them out and it goes well, which would very much be the opposite of an actual Intrusive Thoughts, but I would be remiss to not talk about how much the fugue states Donnie goes into and appearance of Frank can resemble Intrusive Thoughts. Frank is someone only Donnie can see. As such, to others, he seems like nothing more than just a weird excuse for why Donnie does the things he does, or is the way he is. It's once more another way of getting othered, but also something that scares him. We see in the therapy scene that he is absolutely terrified of Frank and the things he tells him to do. While we don't act out the intrusive thoughts we have, they affect us, make us feel like monsters for things we are not in control of. In fact, these thoughts affect us more than most people, and as a result happen more often like a sort of cruel punishment for being vulnerable. Donnie is seen as a terrible kid and othered for having Frank, when in reality he's just scared, more so of himself than anyone else is of him. That is, until the end. He eventually accepts these thoughts are part of him, eventually following where they truly come from, eventually being able to do something actually right with them. Once accepted, Frank kind of leaves. Intrusive thoughts stop being as common and damaging when you're able to understand where they come from and why you feel so strongly about this. Of course, in future, these will come to haunt you, but you are equipped with the convictions built on that self-discovery you first broke them with. We are not our intrusive thoughts. They come from feelings and fears against the very things that we hold dear, and to stop them from having a hold on you, you must accept from where they came. Yourself. Persona 4 reference. I'm sorry, I had to. Others like us. So I've talked a lot about how neurodivergent people get othered for who they are and how that makes them feel isolated. That's not entirely the case. There is somewhere where some people can find solace, and that's with others who have gone through the same or similar experiences we have. Roberta Sparrow is the prime example of this in this movie. Throughout the movie, she is seen as the stereotypical crazy lady from down the street. Just like how we're told as kids, don't trust the weird and crazy, they're unpredictable. However, throughout the movie, it becomes apparent that Roberta Sparrow knows much more than previously shown. She was a genius, a scientist, and made a breakthrough, but went crazy. I think it's important to note that her struggle with mental health has been a thing before. A lot of our greatest breakthroughs are from the mentally ill, as living the way I previously described just lends to you thinking outside of the box more often than not. The people Donnie was previously warned about actually hold more insight into how the world works, based on the fact that he's in this tangent timeline. This feels analogous to how some of the best advice someone struggling with their mental health can be from others who have gone through the similar. Truly, the best advice and help I got wasn't from just some mental health professional or counselor, but it was from people who had to go through much worse before me. Though I would say most of that would be the NHS being, well, the NHS, it still shows the fact that it's hard to understand exactly how to deal with something without knowing how it went down personally, and you can get that advice from the people who have gone through that. Roberta Sparrow, unintentionally or maybe intentionally, this is Donnie Darko after all, shows Donnie exactly what's going on. Her craziness isn't so far-fetched now that Donnie understands it. Let's see. Let me just play it the best I can and we'll go from there.
Elizabeth will be in charge. She'll drive you to therapy. And if you need anything, you promise me that you will call Dr. Thurman.
How's it feel to have a wacko for a son?
It feels wonderful.
Every time I watch this scene, I burst into tears. I burst into tears because I had the exact same conversations verbatim with my mom. And looking back, that's the most generous thing I think you can give to someone who is suffering with their mental health. Just acceptance. Love, not throwing them in a box with a shrink and some medicine to cure them, but to say it's alright. And that you are there for them to make it as painless as you can. That's just so powerful. So every time I watch this scene, I'm hit right back to when I first tried to figure out why I've been struggling with these things. I've never understood properly, and to hear for the first time that it's alright. No more shocks or gasps at who I am, but just acceptance. Conclusion. You can feel isolated in a room full of friends if when you open your mouth there's nothing but shock or laughter. You can feel responsible for thoughts your mind holds into you, and you can go some strength lengths to find acceptance. But if you're able to and know someone in your life who suffers from mental illness, who is prone to breakdowns of all sorts, you don't have to talk through everything. You don't have to be an impromptu therapist. The thing that means everything to someone stuck like this, even if they don't realize it, is not just to be there, but to make it clear to them that you accept them, that you love them for it and will be there to make it as painless as possible. That's all we can ask from each other. Alright, bonus. So I have 3 things I wanted to quickly tack on the end here. Firstly, this is the director's cut that I used for the footage here. I never actually watched the director's cut. I knew it was worse, but I never properly went through and actually looked at it, because I don't want to ruin the enjoyment of a movie I really, really love. Because my copy of the original theatrical cut had like really weird copy protection, so I couldn't even put it on, which ironically just makes me want to pirate it more. I got the director's cut for this, and oh my god, there's so much weird stuff. Like, scenes are all over the place. I appreciate the addition of like actual passages from the book. That's very useful, and I wish the theatrical cut had some. But also it's a bit emblematic because there's so much stuff that's just over-explained in the movie. And also, which, this is Donnie Darko, like, it's supposed to be a little bit as mysterious, come on. Anyway, second thing, this video is absolutely going to be copyright claimed, so if you want to support me, I have a Ko-fi. I'm saving up for reviewing a donut I also have a Patreon, which has the regular Patreon bonuses. Whatever. No one has money nowadays, so it's like, I feel disgusting even asking, but, you know, if you want to support, there's that. Lastly, I'm currently working on scripting a very, very big SMT video that I'm very excited for. However, it's gonna take a while. So in the meantime, don't fret if I start making random shit or I start uploading a lot of stuff that isn't SMT analyses and all that stuff, because I'm working on one. Thank you so much for watching to the end, and I hope you subscribe and stick around for more stuff.